The grand ballroom sparkled with golden lights. Music floated in the air, and the wealthy guests laughed and chatted, holding glasses of expensive wine. It was the charity event of the year, a place where only the richest and most powerful people were invited. Every woman wore a glittering gown, every man a fine black suit. But in one quiet corner, a woman stood alone. Her dress was simple, not expensive like the others, but clean and neat. Her hair was tied back, her shoes were worn, and she clutched her small purse tightly. She was a single mother, invited by chance through a kind neighbor. She didn't belong to this world, and she knew it. The crowd looked at her with curious eyes, whispering. "What is she doing here?" one woman asked. "Maybe she came to serve," another man chuckled. She lowered her eyes, embarrassed, wishing she could disappear. She didn't want attention. She had come only because her neighbor insisted, "It's just a dance, maybe you'll enjoy yourself." But now, surrounded by rich faces and cold stares, she regretted it. Suddenly, the room grew quieter. All heads turned toward the tall man walking in. He was the host of the evening, the man everyone admired, feared, or envied. He was Daniel Carter, one of the youngest billionaires in the country. His sharp black suit fit perfectly, his watch alone could buy someone's house, and his confident steps made people step aside as he entered. Whispers filled the hall. "He looks even more powerful in person. Do you think he will dance tonight? Who will he choose?" Daniel walked with calm elegance, greeting a few people, but his eyes scanned the crowd as if searching for something. And then, his gaze stopped, on her. The single mom, standing quietly in the corner, looked up at that exact moment. Their eyes met. Her heart skipped a beat, and she quickly looked down, pretending to fix her purse. She thought he would ignore her, like everyone else did. But to her shock, he began walking straight toward her. The crowd whispered louder now. "Why is he going there? He never speaks to strangers. This must be a mistake." Her palms grew sweaty. She wanted to run, but her legs felt frozen. And then, he stood in front of her. His voice was smooth, steady, and surprisingly gentle. "Would you honor me with this dance?" She looked up in disbelief. Surely he wasn't speaking to her. But his hand stretched forward, waiting. Her heart raced. "Me?" she whispered, almost too softly. "Yes," Daniel replied with a small smile. The whole room gasped. Women who had waited all evening for his attention looked furious. Men raised their eyebrows in disbelief. But Daniel didn't care. His hand was still there, waiting patiently. Shaking, she placed her hand in his. He led her to the center of the dance floor as the music began again. The crowd stepped back, all eyes fixed on them. At first, she stumbled nervously. I don't know how to dance like this," she whispered. Daniel leaned closer, his voice calm. "Just follow me. Trust me." Slowly, she moved with him. To her surprise, the steps became easier. His strong hand guided her gently but firmly, and soon she felt like she was floating across the floor. For a few minutes, the whispers around her disappeared, and it felt like only the two of them existed. But deep inside, she was trembling, not just from nervousness, but from fear. Why me? Why is a billionaire asking a single mom to dance? Daniel, too, was puzzled. He had danced with many women before, but this time something was different. She wasn't dressed like the others, she didn't smile to impress him, and her eyes carried a pain he couldn't understand. She was a mystery. As the music slowed, he leaned closer and asked softly, "What's your name?" She hesitated, then answered, "Elena." "Elena," he repeated slowly, as if memorizing it. "It suits you." Her cheeks warmed. Nobody had said her name like that in years. The music ended, and the room exploded with whispers again. Some clapped politely, others stared in disbelief. Elena quickly pulled her hand back, embarrassed by all the attention. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaky. "But I should go." Daniel frowned slightly. "Why so soon? I would like to know more about you." She shook her head. "I don't belong here." Before he could stop her, she slipped away through the crowd. The guests watched her leave, whispering louder than ever. Why did she run? She must be hiding something. No ordinary woman would walk away from him. Daniel stood alone on the dance floor, watching her disappear into the night. He felt a strange pull in his chest, something he had never felt before. Elena walked quickly out of the ballroom, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Her heart was still racing from the dance. She could feel dozens of eyes on her back, judging her, wondering why she was there at all. She hated attention, and tonight she had received more than she ever wanted. Outside, the cool night air touched her face. She breathed deeply, trying to calm down. What was I thinking? Dancing with a billionaire. She shook her head, almost laughing at the absurdity. It felt like a dream she had no right to live. But Daniel Carter was no dream. He was real, and the memory of his steady eyes and warm hand was burned into her mind. For a moment on that dance floor, she had forgotten her struggles, her responsibilities, her pain. She had felt free. But reality returned quickly. She was a single mother with bills she could barely pay, a child depending on her, and a past she could never reveal. Meanwhile, inside the ballroom, Daniel was restless. He tried to talk with a few guests, but his mind wandered back to the mysterious woman who had slipped away. Elena. He couldn't explain why she drew him in. She wasn't like the others, there was no fake smile, no attempt to impress him. Instead, she carried herself with quiet strength, though her eyes carried sadness. Later that night, as he drove home in his black car, Daniel looked out the window, his thoughts far away. For years, he had been surrounded by wealth, by people who wanted something from him, money, power, fame. But tonight, for the first time in a long while, he had felt something different. Who is she? Why did she run away? The next day, Elena returned to her small apartment on the other side of the city. The building was old, with cracked walls and broken lights in the hallway. Inside, her little boy, Michael, ran to her with a bright smile. "Mommy, you're home." She knelt down and hugged him tightly. He was her world, her reason for fighting every day. She pushed away the memories of the dance, forcing herself back into reality. She needed to cook, wash clothes, and prepare for her morning shift at the cafe. Still, as she stirred the soup, her mind betrayed her. She remembered the way Daniel had looked at her, as if he saw more than just a struggling single mother. As if he wanted to know her story. But that was impossible. Men like him didn't care about women like her. 2 days later, at the cafe where she worked, the door opened and silence filled the room. Customers turned their heads in surprise. Elena froze when she saw who it was. Daniel Carter. He walked in, not with his usual team of assistants or bodyguards, but alone. His presence filled the small cafe. The manager rushed forward, nervous and excited. "Mr. Carter. What an honor." But Daniel's eyes searched only for her. When he found her behind the counter, he smiled slightly. "Good morning, Elena," he said. Her heart jumped. You shouldn't be here." "Why not?" he asked calmly. "It's just a cafe. And I was craving coffee." The other workers stared, whispering among themselves. Customers pulled out phones, snapping pictures. Elena felt trapped, heat rising in her cheeks. "I told you," she whispered harshly, leaning closer, "I don't belong in your world." Daniel's voice softened. "Maybe. But maybe my world isn't where I want to be. Maybe I'd rather sit here, with you." Her chest tightened. He was a billionaire, and yet he was sitting on a wooden chair in a tiny cafe, ordering coffee like a normal man. It didn't make sense. As she brought him his cup, their eyes met again. She could feel his curiosity, his quiet determination. And though part of her wanted to push him away, another part, a small, dangerous part, wanted to let him in. That evening, the cafe was buzzing with gossip. Why would a man like him visit here? He must like her. She's hiding something, you'll see. Elena tried to ignore the whispers, but deep down, fear gripped her heart. She had a secret, one that could destroy everything if it came out. And the closer Daniel came to her life, the harder it would be to keep that truth hidden. As night fell, she looked at her son sleeping peacefully. She brushed a hand over his hair and whispered, "I'll protect you, no matter what. Nobody can know." But outside, in the shadows of the street, Daniel's car was parked. He sat inside, watching the lights of her apartment, lost in thought. He didn't know her secret yet, but something told him, This woman's story was far more complicated than it seemed. And he was determined to find out. Daniel Carter had always been a man of answers. In business, he could read people easily, know their motives, and see through lies. But with Elena, the single mother he had met at the charity ball, everything was different. She was a puzzle he couldn't stop thinking about. After his visit to the cafe, he told himself to let it go. She had made it clear she didn't want his attention. But her eyes had told a different story, eyes full of sorrow, strength, and mystery. He couldn't ignore them. So one evening, when his business meetings were over, Daniel made a choice that surprised even himself. He asked his driver to take him to the old part of the city, where Elena lived. The streets grew narrower, the buildings older. Children played with broken toys on the sidewalks, and the smell of food from small stalls filled the air. This world was far from the polished halls of luxury Daniel was used to. Yet, as he watched from the car window, he felt a strange warmth. Life here was raw and real. Then he saw her. Elena was carrying 2 grocery bags, walking up the stairs of her crumbling apartment building. Her son, Michael, ran ahead, holding her hand tightly. They laughed together, and for a moment, she didn't look tired or worried. She looked happy. Daniel felt something shift inside him. She didn't need diamonds or palaces to smile. She found joy in the little things, with her son, in their tiny world. Later that night, he parked nearby and waited. From his car, he could see through the thin curtains of her window. Elena was cooking dinner while Michael sat at the table, coloring with crayons. They laughed when the soup spilled, and Elena bent down to wipe her son's cheek. Daniel had never seen such tenderness before. His world was full of power and deals, where people wore masks and chased money. But here, in this small apartment, there was honesty, love, something he had never known. Elena, on the other hand, had no idea she was being watched. To her, life was simple but heavy. Every coin mattered, every meal was carefully planned. She often went to bed hungry just so Michael could eat enough. She worked mornings at the cafe and evenings at a laundry shop. And even then, the bills seemed endless. Yet she never complained. She told her son bedtime stories, kissed him goodnight, and whispered prayers for his future. She wanted him to believe in dreams, even if she had stopped believing in her own. But the more Daniel saw, the more questions grew in his mind. Why would a woman like Elena, who clearly once carried herself with grace, now live in such hardship? He noticed small details, the way she spoke with perfect manners, her careful choice of words, even her posture. She didn't seem like someone who had grown up in poverty. The mystery deepened. The next day, Daniel returned to the cafe. Elena stiffened the moment she saw him. "You're here again?" she asked, her voice sharp but trembling. "Is that a problem?" he replied calmly. "Yes," she said quickly. "I told you before, our lives are different. Please, don't come here." But her eyes betrayed her. Behind the fear, he saw something else, a longing she tried to hide. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "You work too hard, Elena. You deserve more." She froze, then turned away. "You don't know anything about me." "You're right," he admitted softly. "I don't. But I want to." Her lips parted as if to respond, but she closed them quickly. Then, without another word, she carried a tray to another table, avoiding his gaze. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept replaying her words, her tone, the way her hand shook slightly when she spoke. She was afraid of something, afraid of letting him close. By midnight, he had made a decision. He would not ask her anymore. He would find out himself. The next evening, he asked his private investigator, a man who had worked for him for years, to look into Elena's past. But after a few hours, the man returned, shaking his head. "Sir, it's strange. There are gaps in her records. She appears suddenly in this city about 4 years ago. Before that, there's almost nothing. No job history, no address, no family connections we can confirm." Daniel frowned. That only added to the mystery. Who was Elena before she became the struggling single mom? The more he learned, or failed to learn, the deeper his curiosity grew. Across town, Elena tucked Michael into bed. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Sleep well, my love." But when she sat alone by the window afterward, Tears filled her eyes. She thought of the charity ball, of Daniel's kind eyes, and of the danger of letting him near her. Her past was a shadow she couldn't escape. A shadow that could destroy not only her life but also her son's if it ever came out. She pressed a trembling hand against her chest and whispered to herself, I must keep my secret, no matter what. Outside, on the same street, Daniel's car drove slowly past the building again. His eyes searched the lit window of her small apartment, and he thought to himself, Elena, what are you hiding? Days turned into weeks, but Daniel could not push Elena from his thoughts. He had met many people in his life, powerful businessmen, ambitious women, even those who pretended to love him for money. But Elena was different. She did not chase him, she avoided him. And that only pulled him closer. One evening, Daniel decided to visit her small apartment again. This time, he didn't stay hidden in the car. He walked up the stairs, each step echoing in the quiet building. When he knocked on her door, there was silence for a moment, then the sound of small feet rushing across the floor. Mommy, someone's here, little Michael shouted. Elena opened the door, surprised and nervous when she saw Daniel standing there with a polite smile. What are you doing here? She whispered, keeping her voice low. I wanted to see you, he said simply. May I come in? She hesitated, then finally moved aside. Daniel stepped into the small apartment. The walls were faded, the furniture old, but the home felt warm and alive. Toys were scattered on the floor, and the smell of soup filled the air. Michael looked up at Daniel curiously. Are you Mommy's friend? He asked. Daniel knelt down, smiling kindly. Yes. I'm a friend. Elena quickly interrupted. Michael, go finish your drawing in the bedroom. The boy obeyed, leaving the two adults alone. Elena folded her arms, her voice tight. You shouldn't have come here. Why not? Daniel asked softly. Elena, you live a hard life. I just want to help. Her eyes darkened. I don't need your help. What I need is for you to stop following me. Daniel didn't argue. Instead, his eyes wandered to a shelf against the wall. There, among old books, he noticed a framed photograph. He stepped closer before Elena could stop him. The picture showed Elena in a beautiful dress, younger and glowing with happiness. Beside her stood a man in a suit, his arm around her shoulders. Daniel's eyes narrowed. He recognized the man immediately. It was Victor Hale, one of Daniel's fiercest business rivals. He turned to Elena, shocked. You knew him. Elena's face paled. She hurried to take the photo from his hands. That was a long time ago. It doesn't matter now. Daniel's voice grew serious. It matters. Victor Hale is dangerous. How do you know him? Tears welled in her eyes. For a long moment, she said nothing. But then, her shoulders slumped, and her voice broke. Because he was my husband. Daniel froze. The words hit him like a storm. Elena, the struggling single mother, had once been the wife of a billionaire rival. She sank onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. I didn't want anyone to know. When I married Victor, I believed he loved me. But he betrayed me in ways you cannot imagine. He left me broken, with a child to raise alone. I escaped his world because it nearly destroyed me. Daniel's chest tightened. He had heard stories of Victor, his cruelty in business, his heartless decisions. But to imagine him destroying the life of a woman like Elena made Daniel's blood boil. Why didn't you tell anyone? Daniel asked gently, sitting across from her. Because people don't believe women like me, she whispered bitterly. Victor is powerful. If I spoke, nobody would listen. Worse, he would take Michael away. So I stayed silent. I worked, I struggled, and I built a new life in secret. But if anyone finds out, if Victor finds out, her voice broke. I could lose everything. Daniel watched her trembling hands, his own heart heavy. For the first time, he understood the fear in her eyes, the reason she kept pushing him away. She wasn't just poor. She was hiding from a past filled with power, betrayal, and danger. Elena, he said firmly, you are stronger than you know. You survived what others could not. And I promise you, I won't let anyone take your son away. Her eyes widened, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Why do you care so much? You don't even know me." Daniel hesitated, but the truth slipped out softly. "Because you're the first person who's ever made me feel something real." For a moment, silence filled the room. Their eyes locked, the air heavy with unspoken words. But outside, in the darkness of the street, a shadow lingered. A man stood near the corner, watching the apartment window with sharp eyes. He pulled out his phone and whispered, "I found her." The next morning, Elena tried to go about her day as usual. She cooked breakfast, packed Michael's small school bag, and kissed him on the forehead before sending him off with a neighbor. On the outside, she seemed calm, but inside her chest, her heart was heavy. Now Daniel knew the truth. He knew about Victor. The secret she had hidden for years was no longer safe. She had trusted no one, not even her closest friends, yet somehow she had let Daniel too close. She sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling as she held a cup of tea. She whispered to herself, "Please, God, don't let this ruin us." Meanwhile, Daniel was not at peace either. He sat in his office, papers spread across his desk, but he couldn't focus on business. His mind replayed Elena's tearful confession. The betrayal she had suffered, the strength it took to walk away, and the fear she carried every single day. But something else troubled him too. The man in the shadows the night before. He had felt eyes on him as he left her apartment. Someone knew Elena's secret now. And that could only mean one thing: Victor Hale's people were already looking for her. That evening, Daniel returned to Elena's apartment. She opened the door with hesitation, her eyes tired. "Why are you here again?" "Because you're not safe," he said firmly. "Victor will find out. He has money, power, and people everywhere. We need to protect you." Elena shook her head, panic in her voice. "No, no. If he knows I'm here, he'll come for Michael. That's all he wants, to take my son away from me. I can't let that happen." Daniel stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "Listen to me, Elena. You are not alone anymore. I won't let him hurt you or your child. Not while I'm here." Her eyes filled with tears again, but she turned away. "You don't understand. Victor destroys anyone who stands in his way. If you try to help me, he'll destroy you too." Before Daniel could respond, a loud knock shook the door. Elena froze. "Open up," a harsh voice shouted. Her heart dropped. She recognized that voice. It belonged to one of Victor's men. Daniel's jaw tightened. He motioned for Elena to stay quiet, then slowly opened the door. Two tall men in black suits stood outside, their expressions cold. "Mr. Carter," one of them said, pretending to be polite. "What a surprise to see you here. We're looking for a woman. Elena Hale." Daniel's eyes turned sharp. "Her name is not Hale. And you're not welcome here." The man smirked. "Mr. Hale would disagree. He says his wife ran away. She belongs to him. And her son, his son, also belongs to him." Elena gasped from behind the door, covering her mouth with trembling hands. Daniel's voice grew colder. "Tell Victor this, Elena is free. She owes him nothing. If he wants to challenge me, let him come himself. Until then, stay away." The men exchanged glances, their faces tightening with anger. But Daniel's presence was strong, unshaken. Finally, they turned and walked down the stairs, leaving the hallway silent again. Elena collapsed onto the couch, her body shaking. "It's happening," she whispered. "He's coming for us." Daniel sat beside her, taking her hand gently. "Then we'll face him together." She looked at him through her tears. "Why are you doing this? You could lose everything by helping me." His voice was quiet but firm. "Because I can't walk away from you, Elena. Not now. Not ever." For the first time in years, Elena felt something she thought was lost forever: hope. Yet at the same time, fear burned even stronger. Across the city, in a towering glass office, Victor Hale sat in his leather chair, staring at the report his men had given him. His lips curved into a cruel smile. "So," he muttered, "my little bird thought she could escape forever. And now she's with Carter." He slammed his fist on the table. "She will regret this. She will remember who she belongs to. The tension grew heavier with each passing day. Elena lived in constant fear, jumping at every knock, every phone call, every shadow near her door. She knew Victor Hale would not give up. He was a man who hated losing, and she had dared to walk away from him. Daniel stayed close, visiting often, making sure she and Michael were safe. He had hired extra security near her building, though Elena didn't know. To her, Daniel's presence was already more than she could have imagined, someone standing beside her instead of walking away. One evening, Daniel invited her to attend a charity gala with him. "It's important," he said softly. "I want people to see you not as Victor's past, but as your own person." Elena shook her head. "No. If people recognize me, it will only bring trouble." Daniel looked at her gently. "Hiding won't protect you forever. Sometimes, the only way to end fear is to face it." After a long silence, Elena finally agreed. The night of the gala, she wore a modest but elegant dress Daniel had chosen for her. For the first time in years, she looked into the mirror and didn't see a broken woman. She saw someone stronger, someone rising again. When she entered the hall at Daniel's side, whispers immediately filled the room. Guests stared, some with curiosity, others with judgment. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered her name. But Elena held her head high. Daniel's hand was firm around hers, steadying her. Halfway through the evening, a hush swept across the crowd. The doors opened, and Victor Hale himself walked in. His cold eyes searched the room until they landed on Elena. "Ah," he said loudly, his voice dripping with arrogance, "there you are, my runaway wife." Gasps filled the hall. People turned their heads in shock. Elena froze, her heart pounding, but Daniel stepped forward, shielding her. "She is not your wife anymore," Daniel said firmly. "She is free. And she deserves respect." Victor laughed, his tone cruel. "Free? Don't be foolish, Carter. Women like her don't walk away from men like me. She belongs to me. And the boy, he is my blood. I will take him back." Elena's eyes filled with tears, but before she could speak, Daniel raised his hand. "No. You abandoned her. You destroyed her trust. And now you think you can claim her again? Look around, Victor. Everyone here sees the truth tonight. You are not a man of honor, you are a coward who preys on the weak." The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement. For years, Victor's cruelty had been whispered about but never spoken out loud. Now, Daniel had said it in front of everyone. Victor's face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this, Carter." Daniel didn't flinch. "The only thing I regret is not meeting Elena sooner." The words silenced the hall. Elena covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. She had never expected such courage, such open defense. For so long, she had carried her pain in silence, believing no one would ever stand for her. Now, in front of the entire city, Daniel was standing, not only for her but with her. Victor's men tried to step forward, but the security Daniel had placed blocked them instantly. Victor realized he was outnumbered and outmatched. With a final glare, he turned and stormed out of the hall, his pride shattered. The music slowly began again, but the room was still buzzing with whispers. People now looked at Elena differently, not as a scandal, not as a poor single mother, but as a woman of strength who had survived betrayal and dared to stand again. Daniel turned to her, his eyes soft. "It's over now. He won't hurt you again." Elena shook her head, still trembling. "Why did you do all this for me?" He smiled gently. "Because you've shown me what real strength is. Money, power, all of it means nothing without truth, without love. And you, Elena, you gave me something real. That's worth more than anything I've ever owned." Her breath caught. She felt as if the walls around her heart finally cracked open. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. Daniel touched her hand, his voice low. "You don't need to say anything. Just know, you are not alone anymore." In that moment, Elena realized something she had long forgotten. She was worthy of love, of respect, of happiness. And for the first time in years, her tears were not of pain but of hope. The billionaire who had once been just a stranger at a dance had become the man who gave her courage to face her past. His words, his actions, his heart, left her speechless. And as the night went on, with her son safe and her secret no longer a burden, Elena finally smiled, truly smiled, knowing her story was not one of shame, but of survival, and of love found in the most unexpected way.